Oh, good afternoon, Professor Spooner.
Good afternoon, Frank.
How are you?
It's been an exciting time since we talked last. I suppose the most important thing that's happened is the Geneva Accord, but it's really quite amazing how the discussion of that has developed since the agreement was reached in Geneva.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just opened a package this afternoon, which had in it a very large book. I haven't counted and looked at the how many pages, but it must be close to 1,000 pages of a life of Cyrus the Great.
Oh my.
And it's everything that anybody could think of that had anything to do with the history of this figure, explaining what was really important about this man who lived in the middle of the 6th century BC,
Mm-hmm.
and created the largest empire in world history up to that date.
Yes.
And it amuses me enormously that this should come out just after the Geneva Accords.
Well,
And
unfortunately, it probably will not reach the bestseller list. I mean, I heard talking heads on the cable TV stations talking about the Accord, just doing some basic rudimentary education about the history and the background of the Persian empires and Persian history and civilization. And I mean, I was like, oh my God. I mean, they have to explain this to Americans.
oh yeah, but I think that because of globalization, we're now at a point in history when people are ready to hear something about our heritage beyond Athens and Jerusalem.
I suspect so.
And so I think that there is likely to be a public for this sort of thing, although not immediate and not enormous to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, a lot of things have been happening like this recently. Did you see that George Shultz and Henry Kissinger wrote a joint article about the Geneva Accords?
I did not see that. What was their opinion?
Well, it was a long article, too long for me to read all of it word for word, but I skimmed through it. I think in the Wall Street Journal. It was I got it from another source, and I mean, can you think of any precedent of two retired secretaries of state writing a joint article?
Not really. Oh,
Kissinger from what, 73 to 77, and Schultz
correct.
from 82 to 88 or something like that. And so presumably they agree. Mind you, they were both working for Republican presidents, but they go into enormous detail about the Accords and don't say it's good and don't say it's bad.
Well, they are diplomats after all. Yeah.
But it's interesting that they should have chosen to do it. One wonders who asked them to do it, because presumably they don't often have coffee together and chat about these things. Anyway, that's one thing.
Well,
Another
let me ask you this before you pick another avenue here. I think the biggest ramification could well be economic, because the Iranians are already stating they're going to pump as much oil as they possibly can once the sanctions are completely relaxed. And the Saudis said that they are not going to be undersold and are not going to cut back on their own production, quote, even if the price reaches $20 a barrel. Now, the price right now is $120 a barrel. I mean, can you imagine, like, let the good times roll? Happy days are here again. You know what this will do for the economic recovery in the West?
maybe that'll solve the European problem.
It'll solve everything.
But we'll come to that in a minute. But the next thing I want to bring up is the editorial in the Times of India.
Okay, I might have missed that one. What did that say? My reading list is not as expansive as yours.
Well, again, I don't read the Times of India every day, but somebody brought this to my attention, and it's extremely interesting because the opinion was this, that the Geneva Accords are very good for India
Okay.
because it reduces the accord reduces America's dependence on Pakistan. And it's also very good for America because America is withdrawing all its troops from Afghanistan, and it has a difficult relationship with Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to guarantee access to Afghanistan,
Mm-hmm.
and having a better relationship with Iran will help a great deal.
Boy, that's
So, and of course, you probably know that India is put some money into the development of the port in the extreme southeast corner of Iran, Chabahar,
mm-hmm.
In order to try to get access to Central Asia that is not dependent on Pakistan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the whole regional is likely to change. And then, of course, there's the Saudi problem. But you know what the Zarif, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the first thing he did when he got back from Geneva and talked to people there for a day was go off to Saudi Arabia and
Yeah.
talk to the Saudis.
I saw that. I saw that.
Now, that didn't get reported in the American press. It's only the bad things get reported in the
Mm-hmm.
American press.
Mm-hmm. You know, I think it's very interesting that you mentioned the editorial from India, because there was a front page article on Saturday or Sunday in the New York Times about the retiring Pakistani general who's the head of the ISI.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you read the whole article, probably about 30% of it was how frustrated the Americans had been that they were unable to bring the Pakistanis' focus around to terror. The only thing the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Martin Dempsey, thought that this departing general was concerned about was INDIA, period. He said they were mono-focused on that. They just paid lip service to everything else. They didn't care about anything else.
And America doesn't understand why.
No, they don't. And I mean, of course, I've heard that sitting in your classes several dozen times, but it just was amazing to me.
Yeah. But it's very interesting to see what happens in Pakistan, because Sharif is a very intelligent man,
Mm-hmm.
and a big businessman. He has a very different idea about how to run the country from his recent predecessors. And so I mean, enormous problems, and we don't yet know how he's going to deal with those problems. But with him and with the new general, who he's been able to have a hand in choosing, I think Pakistan is going to develop a rather different image from what it's had so far. And I'm surprised that well, from what you say about that article by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, by Dempsey, the Americans may not realize that yet. So we hear a lot about the Saudis now about to get a bomb because they're sure Iran is going to get a bomb, and because Netanyahu is sure Iran is going to get a bomb, even though there's absolutely no evidence that Iran has any interest in getting a bomb.
Well, according to the press, Netanyahu has instructed his intelligence service and the military to obtain any evidence possible that Iran is still working towards a bomb.
Yeah, yeah. But so from this end, it's seen as continuing increase in the tension between Shia and Sunni throughout the region.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly there is some of that going on, and that's been increasing ever since Khomeini won the revolution in 1979. But I think that it's much more complex than that. It's just that every country is going to have a somewhat different relationship with every other country if they manage to complete the next agreement in 6 months' time or so.
Right, right. I saw a very interesting headline the other day saying Assad insists that he must remain president during any transition period. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Did I miss something?
Transition to what?
I mean, nothing's changed there, has it?
Well, I mean, the problem at the moment is how they're going to get the chemical weapons out of the country, because they've got to get them from Damascus to Latakia.
Hmm.
And that's something over 300 kilometers, and the route goes to rebel-held areas.
Ah, okay. Because
Uh,
I see that the U.S. Navy has indicated that they have the ability to burn the chemicals at sea
yes,
in some
yes.
specially designed ship.
That's not going to be very good for our fish supply, I don't think.
No,
But
no, I don't think so. No, stay away from
some
Mediterranean
Norwegian.
fish. Right.
Well, I hope it's not going to be done in the Mediterranean, somewhere in the middle of the Pacific. But
Well,
the a Norwegian ship is going to pick up the chemical weapons from Latakia, and then they've got to find a port somewhere in some other country which will allow itself to be used for the transfer of the weapons from the Norwegian ship to the American ship.
hmm, hmm.
So there's a lot that can still go wrong, and it all has to be done by December 31st.
Right, right,
So it's to ruin somebody's Christmas.
right. Did you read the article about the truck of highly radioactive medical waste that was stolen in Mexico, and then apparently the truck was abandoned somewhere, and the thieves had let their curiosity get the better of them, and opened the lead-lined container in the back. So the Mexicans were able to retrieve the radioactive materials, but they're not going to bother looking for the thieves because, quote, they'll be dead in 96 hours or less anyway because of the exposure.
They were carrying it around in their pockets.
No, they opened the back of the truck that
Yeah,
they had hijacked and apparently got blasted with gamma rays. Much
yeah.
so,
But I don't understand where it all came from.
I think it was a pickup from some sort of repository that emptied out radium and things like that from hospitals in Mexico City. It was
Oh,
it was being brought to some disposal site or burning site.
I see. So it had nothing to do with nuclear weapons.
No, but the apparently it was fissionable material and could have been used for a so-called dirty bomb. So there was like a
Yeah,
super red alert yesterday throughout all of Mexico and part of the southern U.S.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The continual increase in the amount of radioactive material in so many countries, I think, is bigger than the possibility that one or two countries may be looking for a bomb, which I think they probably aren't anyway,
Hmm.
because this sort of thing can cause an enormous amount of damage very quickly without anybody understanding what's going on.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
Uh,
What are your
anyway,
what are your views of the British economy and the recovery there?
well, the news seems to be very good. And of course, if the price of oil goes down,
Well,
uh,
it could be a little bit of a two-edged sword because Britain is still a fairly good-sized producer, although it's on the downslope. But nevertheless, I think on balance it'll be a positive.
I didn't think Britain was. I thought Britain's share of the market was. Britain's not self-sufficient in oil anymore,
Oh no,
or is it?
it's
No.
far from self-sufficient, but they
Yeah.
still produce a number. I mean, a significant revenue from the North Sea.
It certainly reduced the Scottish threat of
Yes,
independence.
yeah, indeed, indeed.
So we've
So
got till next September to find out.
we'll find out is right.
Um, No, there's a lot of things been going on that deserve some sort of discussion. One thing is the Commonwealth Conference in Colombo. Another thing is the uh, Russian Games,
Yes, in
which apparently are
Sochi.
going to be the most expensive games so far, $16 billion.
Yes, yes.
Uh, and it's not clear, and probably a large chunk of that has been spent on security. Um, and I've heard a lot recently about the way the bidding for these games is actually managed internationally, and how each as we go from one 4-year cycle to the next, it becomes a bigger international competition.
Oh yes, yeah.
And it's very interesting that sport should be playing this role in increasing the amount of competition that's going on globally.
Well, remember back in ancient Greece. I mean, we could talk to Jeremy McInerney about this, but during the Olympic Games, the wars would stop. They would stop to allow athletes to pass through the lines to be able to head to Athens or wherever the games were being held. And the games would take quite some time to prepare and to have the athletes travel there and to actually have the games. So I mean, there's sort of a precedent for this insofar as international focus.
So maybe we should have them carry the flame through Syria.
We should probably have the Olympic Games in Damascus, and volunteer that. So
Uh,
no, I'm reminded it's a funny thing, but the security in Sochi is going to be a big challenge for the Russians. I mean, I was reminded once I visited Chartwell, where Winston Churchill lived in south of London, and they have a whole exhibit there, and there's a specific exhibit on the Yalta Conference that he was, of course, unceremoniously sort of dumped at by both Roosevelt and Stalin. But nevertheless, Stalin apparently had NKVD troops for about a 27 or 28-mile length of road, standing literally 3 feet apart from each other, from the airport to the site of the talks. I mean, there was not going to be any possibility whatsoever of any security disruption. So I'm sure it's going to be the same kind of thing. It's going to be unprecedented what we see.
yeah, and it's in a part of Russia that is very close to an area that they're not very certain about. Yeah.
Very, very uncertain about. In fact, just last week, the Moscow police apparently arrested 13 or 14 men, including suicide vests, and claimed to have interrupted some substantial terror plot. But it was a flash in the pan story. It came out one day, and then we never saw anything else about it.
Well, because it probably wasn't supposed to come out.
Possibly, possibly. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Somebody could have leaked it, and it was part of a larger effort to try to ensnare more people. Well,
Meanwhile, more and more keeps coming out about the and
unbelievable.
the fact that we can't really control any of this information anymore.
Well, I hope somebody's listening to this. So, um,
So are we up? Is our time up?
I think our time is up. All right. Well, I look forward to the next session. Hopefully
Yeah.
soon, maybe next week. Thank you, Professor.